The city never slept. Its streets buzzed with activity, even in the dead of night. Cars honked, neon lights flickered, and people hurried past, their faces illuminated by the glow of their phones. But for Mia, the city wasn't a place of excitement or opportunity. It was a battleground. Every day was a struggle to survive, every corner a potential threat. She had been living on the streets for 5 long years, and at just 23 years old she had seen more hardship than most people experience in a lifetime. Mia's story began when she was a child. Her parents died in a car accident when she was only 10, leaving her orphaned and alone. At first she went to live with her uncle, but he didn't want the responsibility of raising her. He treated her poorly, often forgetting to feed her or send her to school. By the time she turned 18, she decided she'd had enough. With nothing but a backpack filled with a few clothes and a tattered photo of her parents, she left his house and never looked back. At first, Mia thought she could find work and build a new life for herself, but without any family connections or a proper education, opportunities were scarce. The little money she earned from odd jobs disappeared quickly, swallowed by rent and bills. Eventually, she couldn't keep up. One eviction notice later, she found herself on the streets fighting for survival. Life on the streets was brutal. Mia learned to be resourceful. She scavenged for food in dumpsters behind restaurants, relying on half-eaten meals discarded by others. She washed herself in public restrooms and kept her belongings hidden in secluded alleys to avoid theft. Nights were the hardest. The cold seeped into her bones, and the constant fear of danger made it impossible to sleep soundly. She carried a small pocket knife for protection, though she hoped she'd never have to use it. Despite everything, Mia refused to give up. She still dreamed of having a family again, a place where she belonged, where someone cared about her. But deep down she knew those dreams were unrealistic. No one wanted a homeless girl with no skills or prospects. So, she buried her hopes and focused on surviving each day. One chilly evening, as Mia rummaged through a dumpster behind a diner, she noticed an elderly man sitting on a bench nearby. His clothes were worn and patched, but there was something dignified about him. He sat upright, his hands resting on a cane, staring off into the distance. There was a sadness in his eyes that struck a chord with Mia. She recognized that look. It was the same emptiness she saw when she caught her reflection in shop windows. Curiosity got the better of her. After grabbing a half-eaten sandwich from the dumpster, she cautiously approached him. "Hey," she said softly, holding out part of her meager meal. "You look like you could use this more than I do." The man turned to her, surprised. For a moment he studied her face as if trying to decide whether to trust her. Then, with a faint smile, he accepted the offering. "Thank you," he said, his voice gravelly but warm. "I'm Harold." Mia nodded. "I'm Mia." She hesitated, before sitting down on the edge of the bench, keeping a respectful distance. They sat in silence for a while, the sounds of the city fading into the background. Finally, Mia broke the quiet. "What's your story, Harold?" Harold sighed, leaning heavily on his cane. "It's a long one," he said. "But I guess you've got time, don't you?" Over the next hour, Harold shared pieces of his life. He told Mia how he had served in the military for over 2 decades, proudly defending his country. When he retired, he thought he'd finally have peace. But life had other plans. His wife passed away from cancer, leaving him devastated. The medical bills piled up, wiping out their savings. Without anyone to turn to, Harold ended up homeless, wandering aimlessly, until he found solace in this park. Mia listened intently, her heart aching for the man beside her. She understood what it was like to lose everything, to feel invisible to the world. As Harold spoke, she realized they weren't so different. Both of them carried scars, both physical and emotional. And both of them were searching for something: hope, purpose, connection. When Harold finished speaking, Mia felt a lump in her throat. She didn't know what to say, so she simply offered him another piece of her sandwich. Harold chuckled softly. "You're kind, Mia. Most people wouldn't even stop to talk to someone like me." "Someone like you?" Mia asked, raising an eyebrow. You mean human? Harold smiled, shaking his head. No, I mean, someone who's fallen through the cracks. Someone society has forgotten. Mia frowned. Well, maybe society forgot us, but we haven't forgotten ourselves, right? Her words hung in the air, simple yet profound. Harold stared at her for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're right, he said. We're still here, still fighting. That night marked the beginning of an unexpected friendship. Over the following weeks, Mia made it a point to visit Harold every evening. She brought him scraps of food, helped him stay warm during freezing nights, and simply kept him company. In return, Harold shared stories of his younger days, tales of bravery, camaraderie, and hope. For the first time in years, both of them felt less alone. Mia began to see Harold not just as someone to help, but as the father figure she'd always longed for. And Harold, too, started seeing Mia as the daughter he never had. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, proving that sometimes the most meaningful connections come from the unlikeliest places. As the days turned into weeks, Mia found herself looking forward to their nightly meetings. Harold's presence gave her a sense of stability she hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to imagine a future, not just surviving, but thriving. Little did she know, their friendship would soon lead to changes neither of them could have anticipated. The bond between Mia and Harold grew stronger with each passing day. What started as a simple act of kindness, offering a stranger half of her sandwich, had blossomed into something neither of them had expected. Every evening, Mia made her way to the park where she first met Harold. Sometimes she brought food she managed to scavenge. Other times she just came to sit beside him and talk. They shared stories, laughter, and even tears, finding solace in each other's company. Harold loved telling Mia about his time in the military. He spoke of camaraderie among soldiers, the thrill of adventure, and the pride he felt serving his country. His eyes sparkled when he recounted tales of bravery during missions or funny moments from basic training. But there were also darker stories, losses he had endured, battles that left scars both visible and invisible. Mia listened intently, absorbing every word. She admired Harold's resilience and strength, qualities she didn't realize she possessed herself until now. In turn, Mia opened up about her own life. She told Harold about losing her parents at a young age and growing up under her uncle's neglectful care. She described how lonely it felt to be unwanted by someone who was supposed to love her. For years, she buried these feelings deep inside, afraid that sharing them would make her seem weak. But Harold listened without judgment, nodding gently and offering words of encouragement. "You're stronger than you think, Mia," he often said. "Anyone can fall apart. It takes real courage to keep going." Their conversations weren't always heavy. On lighter evenings, they joked around, teasing each other like old friends. Harold taught Mia card tricks he learned during his army days, and Mia showed him how to fold origami animals using scraps of paper she found on the streets. These small moments of joy became precious to both of them. In a world that often felt cold and indifferent, their friendship was a warm beacon of light. One evening, as they sat together near the park fountain, Harold asked Mia a question that caught her off guard. "Do you ever think about what you want your future to look like?" Mia hesitated, staring at the rippling water. The truth was, she rarely allowed herself to dream about the future. Survival consumed all her energy, leaving little room for hope. But Harold's question lingered in her mind, forcing her to confront possibilities she had long ignored. Finally, she shrugged. "I guess I'd like to have a family someday, a real one. Not just people related to me, but people who actually care." Harold smiled softly. "You deserve that, Mia. Everyone does." Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. No one had ever told her she deserved happiness before. Most people looked at her and saw only a homeless girl, someone to pity or ignore. But Harold saw something more, a kind heart, a fierce determination, and a soul yearning for connection. Being around him made Mia feel valued in a way she hadn't experienced since her parents died. As weeks turned into months, their routine, remained consistent. Mia continued bringing Harold food and helping him find sheltered spots to sleep during colder nights. In return, Harold offered her wisdom gained from decades of experience. He taught her practical skills like how to tie knots or start a fire safely, an odd mix of survival tactics and life lessons. More importantly, he instilled in her a sense of self-worth she had never known. But their newfound stability wasn't without challenges. One particularly bitter night, as snow began to fall, Mia arrived at the park to find Harold shivering violently. His lips were blue, and his breathing sounded labored. Panic surged through her chest. She quickly wrapped her thin jacket around him and helped him move closer to a nearby vent blowing warm air. "We need to get you out of this weather," she said firmly. Harold shook his head weakly. "It's fine, Mia. I've been through worse." "No, it's not fine," Mia insisted. "You're sick. You can't stay here tonight." Determination burned in her eyes. She couldn't lose him, not after everything they'd been through together. With great effort, Mia guided Harold to an abandoned building she knew of, tucked away in a quieter part of the city. It wasn't much, but it provided some protection from the biting wind. Once inside, she used old newspapers and cardboard boxes to create a makeshift bed for him. Then, she rummaged through her backpack for a scarf she had picked up weeks ago and wrapped it tightly around his neck. "Stay here," she ordered. "I'll go find help." Harold grabbed her arm weakly. "Be careful, Mia. Don't put yourself in danger." "I'll be fine," she assured him, though her voice trembled slightly. "Just rest." Mia ventured back into the freezing streets, determined to find someone who could assist them. After hours of searching, she stumbled upon a community center that offered emergency services for the homeless. Exhausted but relieved, she explained Harold's condition to the staff, who immediately sent a team to retrieve him. By the time they reached the building, Harold was unconscious, his body succumbing to hypothermia. For 2 agonizing days, Mia waited anxiously outside the medical facility where Harold was being treated. She barely slept, pacing back and forth, while replaying the events in her mind. Had she acted too late? Would Harold pull through? Each passing hour felt like an eternity. Finally, a nurse emerged, smiling kindly. "He's stable," she said. "He'll recover thanks to your quick thinking." Relief washed over Mia like a tidal wave. Tears streamed down her face as she sank to her knees, overwhelmed by gratitude. When she was finally allowed to see Harold, she rushed to his bedside, clutching his hand tightly. "You scared me," she whispered, her voice cracking. Harold squeezed her hand weakly, his eyes filled with emotion. "You saved me, Mia. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm grateful." Those words stayed with Mia long after Harold recovered. They reminded her of the power of human connection, the way 2 broken souls could come together and heal each other. Their friendship had transformed both of their lives, giving them purpose and hope in a world that often felt hopeless. Over time, Harold regained his strength, and their nightly meetings resumed. But something had shifted between them. They weren't just acquaintances anymore. They were family. And as they sat side by side under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, sharing another meal scavenged from the streets, Mia realized something profound. Family wasn't defined by blood. It was built on love, trust, and the unbreakable bonds forged through shared struggles. Little did they know, their journey was far from over. The connection they had formed would soon lead to changes neither of them could have imagined, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can set off a chain reaction of transformation. The bond between Mia and Harold had grown into something extraordinary. What began as a chance encounter in a park had turned into a deep, unbreakable friendship. They weren't just 2 people surviving on the streets anymore. They were family. But life rarely gives anyone a break, especially those living on the margins. And one fateful night, their newfound stability was tested in ways neither of them could have anticipated. It was a chilly evening, typical of late autumn. The air carried a biting edge, and the city streets were quieter than usual. Most people had retreated indoors, seeking warmth and comfort. Mia and Harold, however, remained outside, sitting on their usual bench near the park fountain. Mia had brought along a thermos of hot tea she'd managed to snag from a nearby cafe, and they shared it while discussing plans for the coming winter. Harold had been feeling stronger since his bout with hypothermia, but Mia still worried about how he would handle the colder months ahead. As they sat there, sipping tea and laughing softly at Harold's jokes, a group of rowdy teenagers approached them. There were 4 of them, loud and boisterous, their faces partially hidden beneath hoods. One of them carried a baseball bat slung casually over his shoulder. Mia tensed immediately, her instincts screaming danger. She glanced at Harold, who seemed oblivious to the approaching threat, lost in thought. "Hey, old man," one of the teens called out, his voice dripping with mockery. "Got any cash? Hand it over." Harold looked up, startled. His expression shifted from confusion to irritation. "I don't have any money," he said firmly, his tone carrying the authority of someone who had once commanded soldiers. "Leave us alone," the leader of the group sneered, stepping closer. "Don't play games with me," he snapped. "We know you've got something. Everyone does." Mia stood up quickly, positioning herself between Harold and the teenagers. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had faced dangerous situations before, but this felt different. Harold wasn't just some stranger, he was family. She wouldn't let anything happen to him. "You heard him," Mia said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "He doesn't have anything. Now leave us alone." The teenager laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed in the quiet park. "Oh, look at this," he jeered. "Little Miss Homeless thinks she can protect her grandpa?" "She's not homeless," Harold barked, rising to his feet despite his frailty. "And I'm not her grandfather. But she's right. You need to leave." The leader's smirk vanished, replaced by anger. Without warning, he shoved Harold hard, sending him stumbling backward onto the ground. Mia gasped, rushing to Harold's side. He groaned in pain, clutching his side where the fall had jarred him. That was when Mia's protective instincts kicked into overdrive. She whirled around, her eyes blazing with fury. "You don't touch him," she shouted, stepping forward even though she was smaller and weaker than all of them combined. "If you want trouble, you'll get it." For a moment, the teenagers hesitated, caught off guard by her boldness. But then the leader stepped forward again, raising the baseball bat menacingly. "You really want to do this, girl?" he growled. "Because I'm not afraid to use this." Mia didn't back down. Instead, she reached into her pocket, pulling out the small pocket knife she always carried for protection. She flicked it open, holding it tightly in front of her. "Try me," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. The standoff lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. The tension in the air was palpable, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the rustling of leaves. Then suddenly, a voice rang out from behind the group. "What's going on here?" Everyone turned to see a middle-aged woman standing nearby, her phone already raised and dialing emergency services. The teenagers exchanged nervous glances before backing away slowly. "This isn't over," the leader muttered, glaring at Mia before turning and disappearing into the shadows with his gang. As soon as they were gone, Mia dropped to her knees beside Harold, her hands shaking uncontrollably. "Are you okay?" she asked urgently, helping him sit up. His face was pale, but he nodded weakly. "I'm fine," he assured her, though his voice betrayed the pain he was in. "But what about you? You could have gotten hurt." Mia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I wasn't going to let them hurt you," she whispered fiercely. "Never." Harold stared at her, his eyes filled with gratitude and admiration. "You saved me again, Mia," he said softly. "You're braver than anyone I've ever met." Later, that night, after ensuring Harold was settled safely in the abandoned building they sometimes used for shelter, Mia couldn't stop replaying the events in her mind. The adrenaline rush had worn off, leaving her exhausted and shaken. She realized how close they had come to disaster. If that woman hadn't intervened, things might have ended very differently. Word of the incident spread quickly among the local homeless community. People admired Mia's courage and loyalty, whispering about how she had stood up to a gang to protect Harold. Among those who heard the story was Sarah, a kind-hearted volunteer who worked at a nearby shelter. Intrigued, she decided to seek out Mia and Harold to learn more about them. Sarah found them the next evening sitting together on their bench as usual. After introducing herself, she listened intently as Mia recounted what had happened. When she finished, Sarah smiled warmly. "You two are remarkable," she said sincerely. "Not many people would risk their lives for someone else like that." Harold chuckled lightly, wincing slightly from his injuries. "She's the remarkable one," he corrected. "I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared stiff back there." Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Well, you shouldn't have to live like this," she said firmly. "There are resources available, places where you can find safety and support. Let me help you." At first, Mia was hesitant. Trust didn't come easily to her, and she had learned to rely only on herself. But Harold encouraged her to listen. "She's offering us a chance, Mia," he said gently. "A real chance to change our lives." With some reluctance, Mia agreed to hear Sarah out. Over the next few days, Sarah introduced them to various programs designed to assist homeless individuals and veterans. For Harold, she helped secure temporary housing at a facility specifically for retired military personnel. It wasn't luxurious, but it provided warmth, food, and medical care, things Harold desperately needed. For Mia, Sarah offered something equally valuable: a job at the shelter. Though she had no formal qualifications, Sarah recognized Mia's compassion and work ethic. "You've got a gift for connecting with people," Sarah told her. "That's something we need here." Mia accepted the offer, grateful for the opportunity. Working at the shelter gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She helped distribute meals, organize donations, and provide emotional support to others struggling on the streets. Slowly but surely, she began to rebuild her confidence and self-worth. Meanwhile, Harold adjusted to his new living situation. With Sarah's guidance, he applied for veteran benefits and disability assistance, hoping to secure long-term financial stability. The process was slow and frustrating, requiring endless paperwork and phone calls. But Mia stayed by his side throughout, helping him navigate the bureaucratic maze. Her determination kept him motivated during moments of doubt. Their partnership became a source of inspiration for everyone around them. Shelter staff marveled at Mia's dedication, while Harold's fellow residents admired his resilience. Together, they proved that even in the darkest times, hope could flourish when people supported each other. One evening, as they sat together in Harold's tiny apartment, a stark contrast to the cold benches they once called home, Mia reflected on how far they had come. "Do you remember that night in the park?" she asked quietly. "When those guys came after us?" Harold nodded, his expression somber. "How could I forget? You saved my life that night, Mia. Again." "And you saved mine too," Mia replied, smiling softly. "Just by being here, for believing in me when no one else did." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights twinkle outside the window. Neither of them knew what the future held, but for the first time in years they dared to hope. Their journey was far from over, but they faced it together, as family. Through hardship and danger, Mia and Harold had discovered the true meaning of connection. They had proven that even in a world full of uncertainty, love and loyalty could conquer fear. And as they prepared to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain: they would never face them alone. The months that followed Harold's move into temporary housing marked a turning point for both him and Mia. For the first time in years, they had roofs over their heads, even if only temporarily, and access to resources that promised stability. But more importantly, they had each other. Their bond had deepened through shared struggles and triumphs, transforming them from strangers into family. Harold's days were filled with paperwork and phone calls as he worked tirelessly to secure veteran benefits and disability assistance. It was a frustrating process, riddled with bureaucratic hurdles and endless red tape. Each setback tested his patience, but Mia's unwavering support kept him going. She accompanied him to appointments, helped fill out forms, and even called government offices on his behalf when automated systems left him exasperated. "You're doing amazing, Harold," Mia would say whenever frustration threatened to overwhelm him. "We'll get through this together." Her words carried weight because she meant every single one of them. To Harold, Mia wasn't just a helper, she was his anchor. Her presence reminded him why he couldn't give up, not after everything they had overcome together. And so, despite the challenges, Harold persevered. Meanwhile, Mia thrived in her role at the shelter. Her natural empathy and resourcefulness made her an invaluable asset to Sarah and the rest of the staff. She connected easily with residents, offering not just food or blankets but also kindness and understanding. Many of the people who came through the shelter's doors were broken, carrying scars from lives shattered by loss, addiction, or misfortune. Mia saw herself in them, the same pain, the same longing for hope, and it fueled her determination to make a difference. One evening, after finishing her shift, Mia sat with Sarah in the shelter's small break room. The older woman smiled warmly as she handed Mia a steaming cup of tea. "You've done incredible work here, Mia," Sarah said sincerely. "I'm proud of you." Mia blushed, looking down at her hands. "I'm just trying to help," she replied softly. "Like you helped me," Sarah shook her head. "It's more than that. You have a gift. People trust you because you genuinely care about them. That's rare." For a moment, Mia allowed herself to feel a flicker of pride. Growing up, she had always been told she was worthless, someone who didn't matter. But now, surrounded by people who believed in her, she began to see herself differently. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. And for the first time in years, she felt like she belonged somewhere. As Harold's situation improved, he became determined to pay it forward. With Sarah's guidance, he started volunteering at a local veterans center, sharing his experiences and offering mentorship to younger veterans struggling with PTSD or reintegration into civilian life. He found renewed purpose in helping others navigate challenges similar to those he had faced. His confidence grew, and he began reconnecting with old friends from his military days, rebuilding relationships he thought were lost forever. Despite his progress, Harold never forgot where he came from, or the girl who had stood by him when no one else did. Every evening, Mia visited him at his apartment, bringing updates from the shelter and sharing stories about her day. They laughed together, cooked simple meals using ingredients donated to the shelter, and talked about their dreams for the future. Slowly but surely, their makeshift family became a sanctuary, a place where love and gratitude replaced fear and loneliness. Then, one crisp spring morning, Harold received the news he had been waiting for. After months of effort, his application for veteran benefits had finally been approved. The financial relief was significant, covering his medical expenses and providing a modest monthly stipend. Overwhelmed with emotion, Harold immediately called Mia to share the good news. "I can't believe it," he said, his voice trembling with joy. "All these years of struggling, and now I might actually have a chance to start fresh." Mia hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so proud of you, Harold. You deserve this." But Harold wasn't content to keep the blessing to himself. Inspired by Mia's selflessness, he decided to use some of his newfound funds to create a better life, not just for himself, but for her too. One afternoon, as they sat together sipping coffee, he broached the subject cautiously. "Mia," he began, his tone serious yet gentle, "you've done so much for me, more than anyone ever has. I want to repay you." Mia frowned, shaking her head. "You don't owe me anything, Harold. Helping you was never about repayment." "I know," Harold said quickly. "But hear me out. I've been thinking, how would you feel about moving in with me? Not here at this facility, but somewhere permanent, a real home." Mia stared at him, stunned. For a moment, she couldn't find the words to respond. The idea of having a stable home, a place to call her own, was something she had dreamed of but never dared to believe possible. Yet here was Harold offering her exactly that. I don't know what to say, she stammered finally. Are you sure? This is your money, your chance to rebuild your life. I don't want to burden you. Harold chuckled softly, reaching across the table to take her hand. You could never be a burden, Mia. You're my family. Families take care of each other. Besides, I already checked. I can afford a small 2-bedroom apartment without stretching myself thin. We'd both have our own space, but we'd still be together. What do you think? Tears welled up in Mia's eyes as she nodded slowly. I think I'd like that very much. Within weeks, Harold found a cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, warm, and safe. A far cry from the streets they once called home. On moving day, Mia stood in the middle of the living room clutching a box of her belongings, unable to believe it was real. This was hers, a place she could truly belong. Over the next few months, they settled into their new routine. Mia continued working at the shelter, pouring her heart into helping others while finding joy in the stability her new life offered. Harold spent his days volunteering and building connections within the veteran community. Together, they decorated their apartment with thrift store finds and handmade crafts, making it feel like home. Their little family became a beacon of hope in their community. Neighbors noticed the warmth between them and often stopped by to chat or offer help. At the I shelter, residents looked up to Mia, inspired by her resilience and compassion. Even Sarah marveled at how far they had come. One evening, as they sat together on their couch watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues, Harold turned to Mia with a thoughtful expression. Do you remember when we first met? He asked. Mia smiled, nodding. How could I forget? You were sitting on that bench looking so dignified despite everything. I never imagined we'd end up here. Neither did I, Harold admitted. But I'm glad we did. You gave me a second chance, Mia, and I hope I've given you one too. Mia reached over, taking his hand in hers. You have, Harold. More than you'll ever know. In that moment, surrounded by the comfort of their new home and the love they shared, Mia and Harold realized something profound. Life hadn't been kind to them. It had thrown obstacles and hardships their way at every turn. But through it all, they had found each other. And together, they had built something beautiful. A family forged not by blood, but by choice, trust, and unconditional love. Their journey wasn't perfect. They still faced challenges, uncertainties, and moments of doubt. But they faced them, together, side by side, knowing that no matter what happened, they would always have each other. And sometimes, that was enough. The months passed quickly, and Mia and Harold's new life together began to feel like a dream they never wanted to wake up from. They had gone from surviving on the streets to building a home filled with warmth, laughter, and love. Every day brought new opportunities to grow, heal, and give back to the community that had supported them during their darkest times. Their bond had transformed them both, giving them purpose and hope in ways they could never have imagined. Mia continued working at the shelter, her role expanding as she gained confidence and experience. She wasn't just distributing meals or organizing supplies anymore. She was mentoring others who came through the doors, sharing her story to inspire those struggling to find their footing. Many of the residents saw themselves in her, a young woman who had faced unimaginable hardship but refused to give up. Her resilience became a beacon of hope for people who felt invisible to the world. One morning, as Mia sorted through donations, in the shelter's storage room, she overheard 2 volunteers talking about a new program aimed at helping homeless youth transition into stable housing and employment. Intrigued, she approached Sarah later that day to learn more. It's called Pathways Forward, Sarah explained, handing Mia a flyer. It's designed to provide resources and mentorship to young adults who are trying to rebuild their lives. We're looking for someone to lead it. Mia hesitated, glancing at the flyer. Leading a program seemed like a big responsibility, one she wasn't sure she was ready for, but Sarah placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You've already inspired so many people here, she said. This is your chance to make an even bigger impact. After thinking it over, Mia decided to take the leap. With Sarah's guidance, she began planning workshops, connecting participants with job training, programs, and organizing group activities to foster a sense of community. Watching the young adults thrive under her care filled her with pride. For the first time in her life, Mia felt like she was making a real difference, not just in her own life but in the lives of others. Meanwhile, Harold found joy in his volunteer work at the Veterans Center. He spent hours listening to younger veterans share their struggles, offering advice and encouragement based on his own experiences. His presence became a source of comfort for many, reminding them that they weren't alone. Slowly but surely, he rebuilt connections with old friends, attending reunions and gatherings where stories flowed freely over cups of coffee and plates of homemade food. Despite their busy schedules, Mia and Harold made it a point to spend quality time together. They cooked dinner every evening, experimented with recipes they found online, and laughed when things didn't turn out quite right. On weekends, they explored the city, visiting museums, parks, and markets they had once walked past without a second glance. These outings gave them a chance to appreciate the beauty around them and celebrate how far they had come. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves swirled in the breeze, Mia suggested they visit the park where they first met. It had been nearly 2 years since that fateful night, and neither of them had returned since moving into their apartment. As they strolled along familiar paths, memories flooded back. Their initial conversation, the nights spent huddled together for warmth, the moment Mia stood up to protect Harold from danger. They eventually reached the bench where it all began. It looked smaller now, worn down by time and weather, but its significance remained unchanged. Sitting side by side, they reflected on their journey, the hardships they had endured, the risks they had taken, and the love that had carried them through. "I never thought I'd end up here," Mia admitted softly, her voice tinged with wonder. "When I first met you, I didn't think we'd survive another week, let alone build a life together." Harold chuckled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Neither did I. But look at us now. We've got a home, jobs we love, and each other. Not bad for a couple of misfits, huh?" Mia smiled, leaning into his embrace. "Not bad at all." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they sat in comfortable silence, soaking in the beauty of the moment. Life hadn't been easy for either of them, but it had taught them valuable lessons about resilience, gratitude, and the power of human connection. They had learned that family wasn't defined by blood. It was built on trust, loyalty, and unconditional love. Their story spread throughout the community, inspiring others to reach out and help those in need. At the shelter, Mia's success with the Pathways Forward program earned recognition, drawing attention from local media outlets. In interviews, she spoke candidly about her past, emphasizing the importance of compassion and second chances. Her message resonated deeply, encouraging people to see homelessness not as a failure but as a circumstance that anyone could overcome with support and determination. Harold, too, became a symbol of hope within the veteran community. He often shared his story at events organized by the center, urging others to seek help and reminding them that asking for assistance wasn't a sign of weakness, but of strength. Together, he and Mia proved that even in the face of adversity, transformation was possible. On the anniversary of their meeting, Mia and Harold held a small gathering at their apartment to celebrate their journey. Friends from the shelter, fellow veterans, and neighbors joined them for an evening of laughter, music, and heartfelt conversations. As they raised glasses of sparkling cider and a toast, Harold stood up, his eyes shining with emotion. "To Mia," he said, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat, "for saving my life not just that night in the park but every day since. You've given me a family, a purpose, and a reason to keep going. I'll never be able to thank you enough." Tears welled up in Mia's eyes as she hugged him tightly. "And to you, Harold," she replied, her voice trembling, "for believing in me when no one else did, for showing me that I'm worthy of love and happiness. You've given me everything I ever dreamed of, and more." The room erupted in applause filled with cheers and whistles. It was a celebration not just of survival but of triumph, a testament to the power of kindness, courage, and unwavering faith in humanity. As the night drew to a close, Mia and Harold stepped outside onto their balcony, gazing at the stars twinkling above. The city lights cast a soft glow, illuminating their faces with contentment. They had come so far, from loneliness and despair to a life brimming with love and purpose. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met?" Mia asked quietly, breaking the silence. Harold shook his head. "I don't need to wonder. All I know is that meeting you changed my life for the better, and I wouldn't trade that for anything." Mia nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "Same here," she whispered. "You saved me too, Harold, more than you'll ever know." In that moment, surrounded by the hum of the city and the warmth of their shared bond, Mia and Harold realized something profound. Life wasn't perfect. It never would be. There would still be challenges, uncertainties, and moments of doubt. But together, they had created something extraordinary. A family forged not by blood, but by choice, trust, and unconditional love. Their journey had taught them that while the road to healing might be long and difficult, it was also beautiful. Every scar told a story, every struggle led to growth, and every act of kindness rippled outward, touching countless lives. Through it all, they had discovered that the greatest gift they could give, or receive, was the gift of belonging, and, as they stood there hand in hand beneath a sky full of stars, they knew one thing for certain: they were finally home.